Hello there, hi. I'm here with Alan and Janette Murray-Wakelin, and they have a very, very fascinating story that they're going to talk to us about, and a very interesting background, and we're going to talk about quite a few things with them. Hi there, hello.
Hi,
hello.
How are you?
Thank you so much for agreeing to be interviewed. I was so looking forward to interviewing you.
Oh, thank you, it's our pleasure.
You have a very fascinating story to tell. Tell us, Alan, what did you do in 2013?
Okay, so in 2013 we ran the perimeter of Australia. So we ran a marathon every morning for 366 days. And so we ran 42 kilometres and we went anti-clockwise around Australia. That's the very short form of the whole thing.
That is huge.
Mm-hmm. We actually ran 16,000 kilometres, which is like from here to New York. You know, it's
Wow.
it's
That's massive. When you say that to ordinary people, they blink twice and have to ask you a second time because they really think they've misheard.
Yes, usually.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah.
It's so... The question, of course, is why? What were your drivers?
Yeah, I think Janette has a good answer to that one.
Why?
Well, we wanted to, you know, the run itself was perfect because it equates to 365 marathons, the distance.
Yeah.
So that meant we were going to be out there for a whole year running a marathon every single day. And that meant that we were going to have all of that time being in the media, being visible that this is something that's possible to do. You know, taking it to an extreme for most people, but just showing that there are no limits when you're in a state of optimum health. And so that was the reason for doing it, so that we could really reach as many people as possible and take it worldwide.
And your age at the time was?
64.
And your
I
age?
was 68. I'll be 69 next week. So.
68.
Yeah, I'm already 65 now.
68 and 60, 64 and 69 when you did that. That is that's an age when I see people coming into my clinic and they are talking about complete retirement, becoming immobile,
Yes.
living with all their maladies and aches and pains, and they have no perception that they could ever even run one marathon.
Right. Yeah, and the point of what we did was not that to motivate people to run marathons, but to show what is possible, even at our age. And as we ran throughout that whole year, we actually became stronger. It became easier for us. We were running faster by the end of it. So most people would have thought that by the end we would be completely, really exhausted and everything. But it actually got better. And so with every step we were getting younger. So you're never too old to start making those changes that are going to make a difference. And you're certainly never too young. So.
The average person would say, okay, so, well, they're athletes.
Yeah,
what
we
would
often
be
get
your
that.
response to that?
We get that a lot, and people say, well, it's all right for you because you're an athlete. Exactly what they say. But I mean, 20 years ago for me, I was actually 50 pound, 22 kilograms heavier than I am now. I was smoking, drinking. I was not an athlete.
He could not run a block.
Yeah. And I decided, with a bit of persuasion from Janette, that maybe I should sort of try and run a marathon one day. So it was a real effort in the beginning. I mean, I couldn't run a city block without getting a throbbing headache and couldn't breathe, that sort of thing. And now, I mean, we can run half a marathon before breakfast now and you don't even feel it.
Wow.
In fact, it was lovely this morning around Centennial Park there.
Yeah.
Gosh. And one of the other questions that people ask is that how did it practically work? Because you were constantly on the move,
Yes.
and the average person, when they're certainly that age or any age, is thinking, how am I going to finance this? How did you finance it?
Well, we did have some sponsors.
Yes.
We approached several different people for the equipment that we needed. Pretty much all got sponsored, especially the shoes, which would have been otherwise quite a big expense for us, and quite a few other, like all the watch and the GPS and all those types of things that we needed. We got them all sponsored, so that was something we didn't have to finance. And we also got financial backing from a person who was really wanted us to take this message out there. So the message being that making conscious lifestyle choices can make a difference not only to your own health, but to the health of to others and all living beings and the planet. And so he was very conscious of that himself and wanting to get that message out there. So he gave us financial backing to get us going. And then we, basically I stopped work for about 2 years beforehand to do all the organising of it and that sort of thing. And then of course during that year we couldn't work either. So the backing that we did get didn't take us all the way around, so we've definitely put some of our savings into it. But we felt that this was something very important that we wanted to, share with so many people. So now it's about, recovering that if we can, so that we can go on to continue bringing this really good positive message.
And how many pairs of shoes did you get through?
That's a good question. We went through 16 pairs during the run, which might sound like a lot, but that's 1,000 kilometres per pair.
Okay.
Or looking at it even differently, 23 marathons out of every pair of shoes, which is pretty good going.
Wow.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now we come to the question of what you were eating while you were doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, yes.
What were you eating?
80% of our fuel, our food, was from fruit. So
Fruit.
big amounts of fruit. Bananas, oranges, apples,
All types of fruit that we could get.
juicy fruits. And then probably 20%, the balance was from green vegetables, a few nuts and seeds here and there, but not really a lot. So pretty much fruit.
Of course, the ultimate question that the average person asks is, where did you get your protein?
Mm-hmm. Everyone asks that
I
question.
should have entitled the book that, shouldn't I? Same place the cow gets it from. The greens.
The greens.
Yeah. And most people don't realise that because we've kind of been led to believe that you have to eat animal products, to get your protein and your calcium and all those different nutrients. But in fact, those animals get it from plant-based foods. So we cut out the middle animal and go straight to the source, and we get everything we need clearly from the food that we eat, and it's fruit and vegetables, fresh, ripe, organic, and raw.
So you managed to get organic?
As much as we could.
As much as you could.
Where we didn't, then we were very careful with what we bought, and then obviously washing it and so on. With regard to, we basically never consume anything that's been sprayed because you can't even wash that off.
No.
But some things are not too bad, and you can get by on them, but there's a huge difference between organic and non-organic. And we used to think that there's probably a difference, but we found out on the run that there is a huge difference because we were running a marathon every day, so there was something to gauge it by. And when we were eating totally organic, which was all the way through Western Australia to South Australia, because we were sponsored by an organic distributor, then it was completely different. Like, for us, within days, we could feel the difference. We didn't have to eat as much of it because we were getting, more nutrients from food.
Yes.
And the ratio of the fuel was just huge. We found that we could run faster, run easier, sleep easier. Everything was easier. So it was a good gauge, actually, to see, because most people say, oh yes, it tastes better. And that's true as well. But for instance, even with a banana, and obviously we eat a lot of bananas, but with an organic banana, you only need one of those for 3 ordinary bananas to get the same nutrients, if you're lucky. Sometimes it's more than 3 of ordinary bananas, or non-organic bananas. So when a lot of people think that it's more expensive to buy organic, in fact it's not, because you eat less, so you don't need to eat as much. So it's really just sort of getting your head around the fact that it's the value is there in the fact that you don't have to eat as much to get more nutrients.
So what would you
Looking for
get
the
through in a
nutrients.
day?
We went through a lot of food. I mean, we were burning 4,000 to 5,000 calories per day.
Yeah.
So some days, believe it or not, we would eat sort of 25 bananas
Each?
each.
Eat 25
Each,
bananas?
Each.
As well
So-
as all the other food.
Wow.
So the average banana is about 100 calories.
Yes.
It might be slightly more if they're organic. So we'd eat that many. And so if you eat, say, 25 bananas, there's 2,500 calories. And that's a good start for the day. And they digest so easily. You know, you can eat bananas and run out the door. They don't seem to sit heavily in your stomach. So that was our staple food. And then the next thing probably was oranges. Quite often one of the breaks we'd consume 8 or 10 oranges.
Mm-hmm.
The crew would cut them up for us, we'd just come in and devour them and off we
Keep
go
going.
again. And other fruit, like coming up the east coast of Australia was really good because there was tropical fruit everywhere.
And it was summer.
Yeah.
So it was
there
wonderful. Lots of pineapple.
Oh, wow.
mangoes, pineapples, all that sort of fruit, and it was there.
Yeah.
And we ate lots of it. Once we turned left, once we headed from Townsville, heading left, then we had to stock up a lot more. It wasn't quite so easy.
But we did, you know, when we were in the planning stages, we realised that some areas was going to be quite hard to get the food that we wanted, just purely because sometimes there just isn't even a shop there, let alone, you know, being able to get fruit and vegetables. So we dehydrated some bananas, 2,000 bananas we
Okay.
took with us. So that we had them as a backup, and we had other things as a backup like chia seeds, some almonds and some raisins, so that, you know, should we start to run out of fresh fruit and veg, then we had those as a backup, and they worked really well.
I gather you travelled you had a caravan travelling with you,
Yes.
that you
Yes.
slept and
Yeah.
made food.
Yeah.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
did you have a dehydrator in the caravan?
No, that's why we
we
dehydrated everything ahead of time.
Okay.
We just didn't have the room for a dehydrator, but we did have a blender and a juicer, and we made smoothies with the blender every day and juice every day. So at the end of every run we had juice, which was mainly carrots, beetroot and greens, maybe an apple in it, maybe not, and some ginger. And that was pretty much every day. We'd have that at the end of the run, immediately at the end of the run, to just get that back in, so we're not depleted.
And our smoothies,
Mm-hmm.
we would drink 1.5 litres at one sitting. 1.5 litres is like a whole big jug full of smoothie.
Wow, yes.
And in that there probably would be 10 bananas and maybe half a pineapple and oranges, anything we could throw in there. And always a bit of ginger
Mm-hmm.
and turmeric, that sort of thing, just because we know that's good for us.
That's the root itself, of course.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that way it was easily digestible, and it was straight into the bloodstream with the juice. So it was, you know, we were getting those nutrients before we got running again. So
What about biomechanical injuries?
Mm.
That's a very interesting thing, because I see a lot of runners and mainly their nutrition is not so good with a lot of runners because they carb load
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
and then
With
they
empty carbs.
starve themselves
Yes, that's
and
right.
then carb load and
Yeah.
starve themselves
Yeah.
and they often do very high impact.
Yep.
And then they put a lot of stress on their body.
Mhm.
Your body's going through 365 marathons. How was it?
It was fine. We actually didn't have any injuries from running at all. We did have some injuries from falling. Well, actually, it's the stopping at the end of the fall that creates the injury,
Yes.
not the falling itself. That part of it's okay. But we didn't get any injuries from running, and there's two reasons. One is the fuel that we were using from the fruit and veg, but also because we were wearing barefoot shoes. So we were running as if we were barefoot, which means that the body was technically running the best way that it should. So just so that you can see, these are the shoes.
Yeah.
I can
Just-
put it right up there so
They
you
look
can see
like
it.
feet.
They just look like our foot, yes, exactly.
Feet
And there's no cushioning or anything like that. It's just to completely protect your foot underneath from whatever you're running on.
Mm-hmm.
And out there in Australia, in most places, it's either rough, sharp, or
thorny.
or thorny or very hard. So that was just to protect us from getting, a surface injury from treading on something. But there's no cushioning or anything like that in there. So it's designed to assimilate barefoot running. And when you run naturally, which is barefoot, you run correctly, and so you don't get injured. And that was the idea of us wearing these. And they worked absolutely fantastically. In some areas where we had a lot of heat off the road, so the road itself was over 50 degrees, within up to about 10 k's worth of running, we were starting to feel that heat through the shoe. So we kept 3 shoes on the go, 2 pair in the freezer, and 1 pair on foot. And so when we would stop every 10k or more, and get a pair of frozen shoes out, put those on, and we were good to go.
So good.
So, you just do what you have to do in those circumstances. But these are the shoes that made the difference with, with our running and not having injuries. We also had no blisters at all throughout the whole run. And we never do have blisters. So.
We ran through at the end of a hurricane or cyclone, and we had 10 days of torrential rain and wind. This was actually in this area 2 years ago.
Yeah, cyclone
a
Oswald.
year ago, early. And our feet were just wet and soft the whole time, and yet we never got a blister.
Yeah.
I did lose a couple of toenails, just because they were just so soft, but they all grew back during the
We
run.
never had any issues with it. So the shoes were completely soaking, all our clothes were soaking. For 3 weeks we were in and out of wet gear, and we never had any chafe or any blisters or any injuries from that. So, and the other thing about injuries too is that we did get injured by falling a couple of times, and that was basically getting off the road in a hurry or not seeing something that we tripped on,
A stick
or something like that. So we would fall, and it's rough on the sides of the roads everywhere in this country, no matter where you are. So we got quite badly injured a few times with surface injury, obviously, with knees and elbows and things. But we did actually crack ribs as well with the impact of falling a couple of times. But we kept running. And it was painful, but we don't take painkillers. So we were able to gauge, to back off enough for it to be able to just... it was a slower run for a few days. But we healed as we ran. So we did not take time off from those injuries, even though they were quite substantial, really. And we were able to heal within about 5 or 6 days. We were kind of back to running normally. We just didn't talk quite as much as we had been when we were happy. But it didn't take long. Yeah, within 10 days we were pretty much back on track again.
But, when you damage a rib, sneezing or coughing or laughing is no fun. So let alone running a marathon,
Yeah.
But we just ease into it every morning, and always the first hour was the worst,
Yeah.
and then it would slowly sort of warm up and we'd be on track again.
If we were injured, one of us would say, "Are you okay?" and the other one would go, "Yeah," or "Sure." That'd be the conversation for that hour. But when we weren't injured, of course, we were talking the whole way, really, pretty much doing planning, and there was a lot of logistics to keep going with the whole run. So, so injuries were not...
Did you purposefully choose softer ground, or...?
Unfortunately, we weren't able to do that. It would have been nice. We prefer to run on trails and things normally, but we had to run the road because that's what goes around the perimeter of the country. So we followed Highway 1. So we were probably on the worst surface we could possibly be on all the way. And whenever there was no vehicles, we would run in the middle of the road. So there's a lot of roads out there that are very straight for several 100 kilometres straight. In some areas we could look behind us and look ahead of us and see the whole marathon. So you could see for 20k that way and see for 20k that way. And, you just kind of just keep going. But, so you could see if there were vehicles as well. And a lot of those remote places, it'd take quite a while before a vehicle would get to you. So we would run on the white line. So literally we were, running on that line because that was the softest, easiest, and also no camber in the middle of the road.
Okay.
So a lot of the road was very severely cambered, which was, it's hard because your legs are not level. But on the edge of the road, it's extremely rough. And so, so we were it's kind of like having a reflexology session for 6 hours every day for a year.
What were the receptions you got as you ran around Australia and people learnt about you and you turned up?
Amazing. People got to know us. All the big trucks, there's the big road trains up there in the north. Three carriages, 80 wheels. And of course they all have radios. And they were talking to each other, so they all knew. And they'd flash their lights and toot their horns and wave. And they'd give us a really wide berth if they could. Of course, if there were two coming, one in each direction, then we had to move off the road.
Yeah. But when they passed us, it was, the wind from them, especially if it was a windy day, could literally knock us over, especially as we got past the halfway point and had lost some more weight. We were lighter. And it was quite, and they were very aware of that, so they were great. But as we got to different areas, we had the radio stations and TV stations were following us, and newspapers as well, local newspapers. So we were met by those media people and did interviews as we went around, and that was great. And from that, then the people that were driving kind of knew, oh, there they are, those are the people that are running around Australia. And quite often we would have people stop. I mean, you could literally, in places out there, you could stop your car and sit there and chat without any worries about someone else coming up behind and driving into you. It's very remote. And so, we quite often had people stop and chat with us and give us donations for the charities we were running for and that sort of thing. But in the major towns, we did a speaking event in each major town as we went through as well. So after we'd finished that day's marathon, we did a speaking event in the evening and then left the next day. And that was all organised ahead of time by various different people and different groups, so that when we came in, there was always a lot of people there that we could speak to and tell them about the message and why we were doing it and that sort of thing, and then carry on. And from that, we built up a really big following on our social network, Facebook page and the website. And so by the time we finished, we're over 20,000 people now that are still following us. So as we trip around the world telling the same story. So so it worked out really well, and it was so great to have that support and know that people were really, behind us, even if we didn't know who they were or where they came from.
Mm-hmm.
It was great.
And you set records.
We did. We set world records for the most continuous marathons. Plus, we're older than most people that run, so that was also a record. The oldest couple who could run around Australia.
The only couple as well who's ever run
and
together.
Then, I'm sure we were the first raw vegan couple to do anything like that. And that was one of the reasons that we did this, to sort of prove the point.
That it's possible on a plant-based diet, and also the barefoot, of course. No one's ever run that far.
So there's a few records there.
And we actually broke the world record for consecutive marathons. So we're now, so we actually ran 366 consecutive marathons, because when we'd finished the year, we went out the next day on January the 1st and ran just one more for the record.
Yes. Janette, tell me about your story, because you have a backstory, how you came to be so involved with with running and with healthy eating.
Yeah. Well, I'd always been, or considered myself as having a healthy lifestyle, a healthy diet and so on, because I'd been pretty much vegetarian most of my life, and then through to being vegan. But 13 years ago, I had a diagnosis of cancer, and I was the short form of the story is that I was basically given 6 months to live. And that wasn't something that I was very excited about. As you can imagine, I wanted a refund on that prognosis. So rather than, spend that 6 months dying, we decided to do as much research as we possibly could into what I could do to help the body to rejuvenate and recover and change the prognosis. Which within that 6 months, we achieved that. And that's actually in my book. So I've written the book called Raw Can Cure Cancer, and that goes into much more detail about the journey.
That's this book,
Yes.
Raw Can Cure Cancer, and it's an amazing book. So I advise everybody to read it. And also what touched me about the book, which is that you had so much family support.
Yes, yes. And I think it's really important, well, it's one of the most important things is to have support. And I know that a lot of people that we've spoken to, they'll say, oh, well, I want to make these changes with my diet and with my lifestyle choices, but my partner doesn't want to do that or whatever. But I think it's really important, especially with health issues and diagnoses, that partners and family and friends, the best thing they can possibly do for their loved one is to support them anyway. So support them in the choices they're making, even if you're not making those choices yourself. Because that is so important, to have the support and know that the choices you're making for yourself, your friends and your loved ones are supporting you in your choices. Because eventually, as things happen, when you start to become more healthy, then they see that. And that's what we're finding now, is that most people, they'll say to us, oh, well, I don't know if I could change this or change that, but you guys have, and look at what you've done, so maybe I could. We had an interview the other day, mainstream media, and the interviewer said, well, if a couple of old grannies can do it, I guess I can get out there and do it too, and I'll have a green smoothie tomorrow. That type of thing. So it's not that you absolutely have to have your family or friends support you by doing the same thing. They just need to support you. And that's very important, because I know as I went through my journey, I met a lot of people who were on the similar journey with health issues, who were felt completely alone in the journey that they were on, because they were not being supported. So I think that's a very, very important thing, and that's part of what I've written in the book is for people to read this book. Everybody needs to read this book and really relate to the various different aspects of what it means to have a health issue of any sort, and what it means to not have it, and how everyone can be a player in that situation. So this is not just something for people with cancer. This is something for everybody, because everybody has the capacity to care for others, and that's really what it's all about. So from that, back to the original question, from that was, we then wanted to share the experience with as many people as we could, because I didn't get that information. When I got the diagnosis, I was offered treatment, and that was, but the prognosis was not going to change, not for much, maybe another 6 months of being sick.
Another 6 months of being sick. And you had some initial treatments.
So,
Yes.
well, I had surgery.
You had surgery.
And that was it. But the treatment that was offered, basically they were saying, with chemotherapy and radiation, was that I might get another 6 months.
Were you clear after the surgery?
No.
No. What was the residue?
Well, there was still quite a few cancer cells there that they couldn't remove with surgery, because you'd be able to see through me. So, okay. So basically in the chest wall and so on. So, having chemotherapy and radiation, there was a possibility that it might, kill some of the cancer cells. But so far as the prognosis was, it really didn't change. They still said that, yes, you might get another 6 months, which would give you time to, how does the phrase go, get your things in order.
Yes.
So that just totally didn't make sense to me. Why would I wasn't sick at the time of getting a prognosis and a diagnosis, so why would I want to then, spend the rest of my life, which may be as short as a year, with treatment, being sick? It didn't make sense. So I wanted to spend the time that I did have, whatever that might be, to help the body to change that, and that's pretty much what I did. So, and that's sort of more detailed in the book.
What flipped you over? What flipped you over to say, okay, I don't want to have all this aggressive treatment that I'm being offered. I want to take another path.
Yeah. Well, I think immediately I think it was intuitive really, but it did not make sense. Just didn't make sense. And for me, that meant there's got to be some other way, or no way. Like, I could have just done nothing and had the same result,
Yes.
according to the prognosis. So, so it made sense for me to then, set to and start taking responsibility for my own health and trying to make a difference. The other thing that, when I started to think more about my situation, it was the grandchildren and the children. So it was, my thought at the time was, well, if I die within 6 or 12 months, what's going to happen for my children and my grandchildren? Not that I need to be there for them necessarily, but how are they going to remember me? 6 months worth of being sick and no hair and who knows what else, and that wasn't something that I wanted to put on them.
Okay.
I felt that if I really was going to die, I was going to do it mid-air, going out happy and so on. So I didn't, and so for the other part of it too was with the grandchildren, especially. I had one at that time, and I figured that there'd probably be more, and I was hanging around for them for sure. You don't pass up being a granny, believe me. So I now have 5. We have 5. We have 5 of them.
Wow.
And it's such a treat.
And we live with 3 of them, and their parents, our son and daughter-in-law, and it's just such a wonderful experience to be a part of that. And I think that's very important. And a lot of people tend to, as they get older, think that, or just go down that road of aging, or think that it's normal to get less active and have health issues, where that's not normal. It might be standard, but it's not normal. I think that it's normal for us all to be healthy into our later years, not necessarily be unhealthy. Most people spend the last 40 years of their lives dying instead of thriving and living. And I wanted to do that. I wanted to be vibrant and living and be able to, go for a run with my grandchildren. So, and we can certainly do that. In fact, our grandchildren are still trying to catch up. So it's all good, and I think if people really got their heads around it, it's really, we need to change the way we think, because we've been led to believe that it's normal to get older and to be unhealthy as you get older.
Yes.
And aging is a major issue, and it doesn't have to be. We can make the choices that will make a difference.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you're nearly, you're 69 next year. You're 69 in a week's time.
That's right. Yeah.
69 in a week's. When you look around at your peers, what reaction do your peers? What reaction do you get from your peers?
Honestly, I don't feel like I'm 69 really. I can relate more to people in their 30s and 40s really. I don't know. I mean, what do you think?
Well, the other day we were invited to speak at a seniors group, and we hadn't spoken specifically to seniors before, and the seniors group ranges actually from 50 up, but the people in the audience were pretty much our age and up, so mid-60s through to 80s. And most of them either had a cane or had difficulty walking or weren't there because they couldn't get there, because we had, you know, a lot of people said, oh, so-and-so would have loved to been here, but she finds it difficult these days. And that, again, is all considered normal and standard. So it was great to be able to speak with people like that and tell them, you're still not too old and you still have not got beyond being able to make differences. And a really good example is my father. When my mother passed away in her early 80s, both of them had been living close to us, and so my dad said, well, you know, I want to continue living here with you. And so we said, well, we're 100% raw vegan, so that's what we're going to be eating. He said, that's not a problem, I'll just eat whatever you guys are eating and do whatever you're doing. So at the age of 86, he went 100% raw vegan overnight from being somewhat healthy eater for a person of his generation. But they were still eating some animal products. They didn't eat any junk food or anything like that, and you know, they grew veggies in the garden and so on. So what would be considered, you know, relatively healthy, but he changed completely to raw vegan. So he was having smoothies in the morning with us, juice in the afternoon, lots of salads and lots of fruit, vegetables. We discovered after Mum passed away that there was quite a lot of medication there in the house for my dad, and he had no idea, as a lot of couples of that generation, you know, the guy has no idea what he's taking, why he's taking it. You know, Mum was dishing out what he needed that the doctor had given him. She was actually quite concerned that she die first because she wasn't sure how he was going to figure out what clothes to wear. So, you know, that type of generation thought pattern. So my dad said, well, I'll go to the doctor and I'll ask him all of these things. Because I said to him, you've got to just stop taking all of this. Because, you know, all of the little things that you've got happening now, there's, you know, some of what you're taking can be causing this. But we need to find out what they are and what they're supposed to be doing. So he went and had a test, all the tests, and found out that basically he was relatively normal for his age. But he had all these medications that were for everything you can think of. So they're basically being handed out to him. They used to go and visit the doctor sort of as a social visit, once or 2 weeks or something. And he was being given all sorts of medication.
Yes.
So so we got rid of all of that. Same thing, overnight he stopped everything, even though there were several of those items that the doctor said, well, you've really got to, you know, either stay on them or wean off them very slowly. We just increased the amount of juicing that we were doing for him, and he just thrived. And what happened within 6 months for him was he got his hearing back. So he'd been hard of hearing all of my life. So for as long as I can remember, he was basically, we consider them to be deaf. So his hearing came back, his eyesight came back so that he didn't need to wear glasses anymore, and he started reading. He hadn't been reading, like sitting down and reading a book for years, and he started reading books without glasses. He could hear us in the other room, what we were saying clearly. He started walking again. Before that he was, you know, just sort of tottering around with a cane. So he got up to doing, you know, about 5K walks every day, and basically became a younger man within 6 months. Like, this is very quick, is what happens. As soon as you start just having nutrient-laden food, the body reacts and starts, you know, getting rid of all those issues, because that's all it is. It's just imbalance in the body. So it's never too late. There at 86, he completely you know, regained his health completely. Yes. So yeah, so we found that that our peers then, they kind of go like, oh, really? Like, could we actually run a marathon? I said, anybody can run a marathon. Yes. It's all about, you know, doing it right, but
Yes.
you don't need to. You just need to keep, you need to enjoy your life and be active and be happy and healthy. So that, I mean, a lot of people say to me, well, do you do weightlifting and everything? Which we do, but just hand weights at home. It's just because running doesn't do much for your upper body. So to keep that core strength. But I tell them the only reason I want to be, I want to be strong enough to be able to pick up my grandchildren and to dig the garden. That's really all you need to be able to do. Anything else is great. That's a goal. That's something, a challenge, or something that you might want to go down the road. But for, for ordinary people, and we're just a couple of regular grannies, you just need to be able to hug your kids and dig the garden.
Brilliant. Now, you've got the book out, which is Running Out of Time. Running Out of Time, which is, this has come out recently, and you're on the book tour at the moment?
Yes.
Yes. And did I hear mention of a film? What's happening there? Tell me.
That's very exciting news. That's really, really great. Since we did the run, I've written the book, and the book is based on the run. It's got accounts of everything, that every day basically, as well as some of the funny little stories that happened along the way, and some recipes in there. But we were approached when we were speaking in Sydney last, I think it even might have been when we met you, by a filmmaker who was in the audience. And he approached us and said, look, this message that you have and what you've done to prove needs to go worldwide. This is huge. This is going to change the world. And I'm going to help you do that. And so we now have quite a team that have come together with a producer and editor and cinematographer and various other people to put together a really good documentary. And what they want to do is make it at a standard that will go to the film festivals and into cinemas. So that it's not just going to be a documentary that's watched in some club somewhere. It's really going to be something that's going into the cinemas, and it means for us that we have to do a rerun, so to speak. We have to go out there and do all the cinematic shots. So
Yes.
we're about to start doing that this month, going out with the team and into the areas in Australia that are very Australiana, with all the red sand and long straight roads, and get all those kind of shots, which we obviously didn't have cameras to do at the time. And then they're putting it all together with the raw footage that we did take on the run, and quite a lot of interviews with various different people who have also had various journeys within their lives and health, health changes and things like that, to show that it's not just us. It's there's many people that are making huge differences, and so that documentary is due to come out in April for the April Cannes Film Festival in France.
So that's April 2015.
Yes, this coming April.
And does it have a title yet?
It's Running Out of Time.
Running Out of Time.
And so that's, and at the moment we're crowdfunding for it. We've got on our website, there's a link through to the crowdfunding. So if anybody, can help us in any way financially, that's one way you can do it. You make a donation and you get a reward. Usually you can choose what you want, whether it's a copy of the book or a copy of the DVD when it's made, that type of thing. So that's one way of doing it, but we're also approaching various different people that might be interested in investing in the film itself. So people who really want to get that message out there. So we're working on that at the moment. We're also going to approach the ministers of tourism and people like that, Minister of Health, because this is something that is going to be great for Australia as well, to really put Australia on the map as showing by example what can happen, with lifestyle. So
you still run every day?
Yeah.
Yes, we do. We ran this morning around the park.
Yes.
It was beautiful this morning.
Yeah, a lot of people.
So we've been in Sydney now for 3 days, and we've run every morning. We usually head down to the park and run around there. We barely missed a day. When we finished the run, we took a couple of days off. thought it'd be nice, and did this sort of
We
fantasy.
weren't quite sure what to do
Sort
though.
of sleeping in and having baths and all that sort of thing, things we've been dreaming about for over a year.
That's right.
And then we just sort of got back in the habit of running again, and we have to keep in shape. We've got some presentations to do. People have asked us to join them in various runs and things, so
Yeah.
we have to keep in shape, and this is the ideal way to do it.
Yeah, that's great.
Brilliant.
And of course, obviously, we're still eating the same food, we're just not eating as much because we're not running as far. And so that's all relevant. But you know, a lot of people have asked us, well, do you still run and do you still eat the same food? And our answer is, well, why would you stop doing something that works?
Yes.
You know, so yeah, absolutely, we still are doing that. And this year, since we finished the run, we've been going, you know, and we've been invited to speak at various different conferences and festivals and seminars worldwide. So we've been on, I think we might have been on the plane more than we've been on the ground for this year so far, and it hasn't finished yet. But at the moment we're on the road, so we're actually doing a road trip, driving up the coast here to speak at various different places. But yeah, and then we do have something very exciting coming up.
So your lives are very full.
It
Yes,
is,
very
it
full.
is, very
Yeah, in fact,
Yeah.
it's busier now than when we were on the run. I mean, it was a lot easier to just get up and go for a run, to be honest, last year than what we're doing now. But that's okay. It's all part of, you know, wanting to bring that message out and being passionate about sharing it and getting the film done. So that's the big push right now, is getting the film done. And if people have got, you know, whatever networks they've got that they could share that link with, that's going to be a big help to us and a big help to everybody eventually. Yeah. So.
But you're going to mention what's coming up. We've got
Yeah. So for the rest of this year, we will be going up and up the coast. We're going to Brisbane next week. We're building a whole new website, which will be much more proactive for people who are following us, and who want to know more about what we're doing and why. And then we go up to Noosa. We're speaking in Noosa. We're speaking in Byron three times on the way back down. And then we get back to Melbourne for World Vegan Day, and go over to Bendigo and Adelaide for 2 different speaking events. After that, we're going to be flying to a country that have invited us there to come and speak to them about getting their country people healthy and bringing the country back to, you know, everybody in this country. So it's quite a huge thing, and the country is Brunei, and we've only just been given the permission to actually let people know this. So
Wow.
we've been invited by the ministry in Brunei to come over there and help by speaking to the people there about their health and making lifestyle changes and making lifestyle choices that are going to make a difference to the health of the people in general, and about you know, growing food and being more sustainable within the country. There's only 400,000 people in the country, and so it's definitely a doable thing, and it's a tropical country, so they can pretty much grow everything they need. And so that's something that we're going to be going and helping them with. And that's going to be in December. So that's very exciting to be able to bring, you know, I mean, we've been to the States, we've been to Canada, we've actually spent 2 weeks in Hong Kong speaking to people there, and we've been invited for next year to go to Europe, back to the States and Hong Kong and Canada, and actually into China next year. So a lot of people are asking, you know, they want to know more about these lifestyle choices that they can make. And so that's really great. We're very excited about that. So
Wonderful.
yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. You really are an inspirational couple. It's
Thank
been
you.
an absolute joy. Thank you very much.
Thank you for
Very
having
I've been
us.
welcome.
speaking to Janette and Alan Murray-Wakelin, and read the books, great
Yes.
books, and
You can go on the website.
when the movie comes out, watch the movie because I'm really looking forward to it. Thank
Yes.
you so much.
Thank
Right.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.